Hey there, everyone. Ready for another one? My name is Alex, and you are on the Classic Cars Roast channel. Strap in. We're about to go on a deep and brutally honest dive into one of the most requested cars on this channel, the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne. Now, if you're thinking this is just another classic car with a pretty face, hold your horses. This car is a product of the so-called malaise era, and it's about as close to automotive mediocrity as you can get without actually being a complete disaster. First off, let's talk market situation. The big iron market is really heating up right now, which means that cars like the Parisienne are surprisingly fetching some absurdly high prices. I'm talking about auction prices that range from $30,000 to $70,000, and that's for cars that have seen about as much action as a hermit crab. One sold recently with a mere 97 miles on the odometer. 97! You could drive that to the grocery store and back, and it would still be considered low mileage. If that doesn't scream pathetic, I don't know what does. Now, the first impressions of this beast. Well, the exterior is a mix of chrome detailing and intricate tail fins that scream, "Look at me!" But before you get too starry-eyed, remember that heavy use of chrome doesn't mask the fact that the body is built on a foundation of compromises, like using a Chevrolet engine in a Canadian-built Pontiac. The engine options are as uninspiring as they come, with a measly 283 cubic inch displacement V8 cranking out a pathetic 185 horsepower. This car was supposed to be a premium offering, but let's be real, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. Moving to the interior, you'll find a dashboard layout that looks symmetrical but feels about as exciting as watching paint dry. The bench seats are more about comfort than style, and if you're expecting a center console, good luck with that. It's minimal to the point of being downright depressing. So, what do you think? Would you be willing to fork over your hard-earned cash for this nostalgic piece of automotive history when you could get something with actual performance and quality? The Parisienne may have its unique charm, but it's a charm that's fading faster than its paint under the harsh rays of reality. When you think of the late 1950s, what comes to mind? Rock and roll, poodle skirts, and a booming economy, right? But let's not kid ourselves. This was the dawn of a new era in the automotive world, too. Enter the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne, a car caught in the crossfire of a culture shift that was as dramatic as Elvis shaking his hips on stage. Born into the first generation of the Parisienne series, this beauty was designed exclusively for the Canadian market. Why? Because somewhere along the line, Pontiac decided it was time to give our neighbors to the north a taste of American muscle wrapped in a stylish package. But let's not get too carried away. The Parisienne was essentially a high-end trim level of the Pontiac Laurentian. It's like being the best-dressed kid at a party where everyone else is wearing hand-me-downs. This car struts around with its heavy chrome detailing, intricate tail fins, and a grille that says, "I'm here, and you better notice me." But the reality is, it's still just a Pontiac. And while it tries to play dress-up, it's hiding some pretty dreadful engineering flaws underneath that shiny exterior. Think about it. The engine. This particular model was equipped with a measly 283 cubic inch displacement V8, producing approximately 185 horsepower. Pathetic, right? I mean, we're talking about a car that's supposed to embody the spirit of the American dream, but it can barely muster enough power to outrun a toddler on a tricycle. You see, the malaise era was creeping in, and the days of high-compression, high-horsepower engines were dwindling. 1970 was the last great year for that kind of power, and here we are, 200 horsepower and a lowly 7.6 to 1 compression ratio later. It's a far cry from the roaring beasts of the early 60s that put actual excitement on the roads. And let's not overlook the transmission options. Sure, it came with a Hydra-matic 4-speed automatic, but we all know the Turbo Hydra-matic 400 is the king of automatics. The Parisienne's transmission can't hold a candle to that legendary unit. It's like comparing a cheap knockoff to the real deal. Now, don't get me wrong, this car has a certain brutal charm. It's like that slightly overweight friend who always makes you laugh. Endearing in its own way, but not exactly a sprinter. With its unique styling and limited production numbers, the Parisienne has carved out a niche in the collector's market, but it's a niche built on nostalgia rather than performance. So, as we dive deeper into this era of automotive history, remember, The 1958 Pontiac Parisienne is a car that embodies the transition from the golden age of muscle to the sobering reality of mediocrity. It's a snapshot of a moment in time where style tried to mask the decline of substance. Would you buy one? Or is it just another relic of a bygone era? Now let's dive into the exterior of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne, a car that's as flashy as it is flawed. First off, let's talk about the colors. You've got options like Fontaine Blue, Calypso Green, Corsair Tan, and Ebony Black. Now, while these names sound like fancy cocktails at a posh bar, the reality is that they're just masking the mediocrity underneath. Sure, the colors might catch your eye, but the overall aesthetic? It's like putting lipstick on a pig, folks. The heavy use of chrome detailing is supposed to exude luxury, but it often feels more like overcompensation for the car's lackluster performance. What's the point of looking good if you can't back it up on the road? And speaking of looks, let's tackle those intricate tail fins. These fins are meant to scream, "Look at me!" But instead they whisper, "I'm trying too hard." The dual rear lamps are a nice touch, but they do little to distract from the fact that this car is essentially a glorified Chevrolet with a Pontiac badge slapped on it. You'd think a car with such a distinctive design would have a little more character, but honestly, it feels like it's caught between wanting to be elegant and just being a little too gaudy. Now turn your attention to the grille. This model features a prominent chrome grille with vertical bars that was all the rage back in the day. It's flashy, but does it really say Pontiac? Or does it scream, "I'm just trying to keep up with the Joneses"? This grille might have impressed some back in 1958, but to me, it feels like a desperate attempt to stand out in a sea of mediocrity. Bumpers are another area where the Parisienne tries to flex its muscles. The heavy chrome bumpers are supposed to convey strength, but let's be real. They're more of a liability than an asset. With the common rust spots lurking around the trunk pan and wheel wells, you might find these bumpers looking less than pristine pretty quickly. And don't even get me started on the overall build quality. Comically thick door seals might keep the noise out, but they also hide some shocking panel gaps that scream budget build. The overall body lines of this car are a mix of fins and chrome that echo the late 50s vibe, but they don't hold a candle to the clean lines of earlier models. The charm of classic cars is often in their simplicity, yet here we are, drowning in excess. It's a shame because beneath all that bling lies a car that doesn't have the guts to back up its flashy looks. So, would I spend my money on this? Not a chance. The exterior might have its moments, but it's nothing more than a facade for a car that's as confused about its identity as I am about its appeal. All right, folks, it's time to delve into the interior of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne. Now, if you thought the exterior was a spectacle, just wait until you experience this cabin, or should I say this mishmash of questionable design choices and dated materials. The dashboard layout is a symmetrical design featuring a large speedometer right in the center, a classic nod to the era, but it feels like Pontiac was trying to channel a sense of elegance that simply fell flat. The chrome accents are everywhere, and while some might find that nostalgic, I see it as an attempt to distract from the overall mediocrity of the materials used. Now, let's talk about the seats. You've got bench seats available in either cloth or leatherette options. I mean, come on! In an age where you'd expect a bit more luxury, what do we get? A glorified couch that feels like it's been plucked straight out of a thrift store. Sure, the fold-down armrest in the rear seat is a nice touch, but it's not enough to save you from the uncomfortable reality of road trips in this beast. You want comfort? Look elsewhere. I've seen more inviting seating in a bus station waiting room. And the smell. Oh, the smell. It's a unique blend of vintage vinyl, musty carpet, and that unmistakable hint of neglect. It's the kind of aroma that makes you wonder if you're sitting in a classic car or a time capsule that's been sealed away since the 60s. For someone like me who appreciates a car with a certain character, that could be charming. But to be honest, it's more likely to get a strong no from potential buyers who care about cleanliness and upkeep. As for options, the standard two-spoke steering wheel lacks any real flair. Sure, there are deluxe options with a chrome horn ring, but is that really going to save the day? No center console to speak of means you're left fumbling for your gear shift like a caveman trying to figure out fire. And don't get me started on the electrical issues. If you're lucky, The wiring harness will hold up long enough for you to enjoy a few drives before you're left stranded because of intermittent failures. So what does all this mean? If you're venturing into the classic car market, you want a vehicle that's going to impress, not one that feels like a collection of half-hearted attempts at luxury. The interior of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne? It's a classic case of style over substance, and for me, that's an immediate disqualifier. Would you really want to spend time in this cramped, uncomfortable space? I know I wouldn't. All right, car lovers, gather around because it's time to rip the hood off this relic and dive into the engine of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's address the elephant in the room. This car is packing a measly 283 cubic inch displacement V8 engine, a far cry from the glory days of high-compression V8s that ended in 1970. That's right. We're talking about a pathetic 185 horsepower, and if you're thinking about torque, well, good luck finding those specifics. This engine was typical of the early Chevrolet small block configurations, which means it's about as exciting as watching paint dry. So what about performance? You're looking at a 0 to 60 miles per hour time that stretches from 10.5 to 12 seconds, depending on how much you're willing to coax this thing along. Now, let's talk about the engine code, A283. Sounds cool, right? But let's be real. It's just a label for a power plant that struggles to keep up with a modern lawnmower. The compression ratio is a laughable 7.6 to 1. I mean, if you're going to drive a classic, you expect at least some thrilling power beneath the hood. Instead, you've got a glorified grocery getter. And don't even get me started on the transmission options. While the automatic Hydra-matic 4-speed has its merits, it's no turbo Hydra-matic 400. That transmission is the holy grail of automatic gearboxes, the best automatic transmission ever built, and here we are with a subpar alternative. Now, if you're looking for raw power, forget about it. This engine just doesn't deliver. It's like bringing a rubber knife to a gunfight. And if you want to rev this baby up, you'll be facing the grim reality that this engine isn't going to deliver that exhilarating roar you're hoping for. Instead, you'll have a whimpering sound that says, "Please don't push me." In terms of reliability, the engine does have its weak points. Expect camshaft wear and transmission linkage issues, especially if you're rocking that manual configuration. And if you're considering this car for some spirited driving, do yourself a favor and reconsider. This is not the engine you want in your corner when the going gets tough. So there you have it, folks. The engine of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne is less of a powerhouse and more of a reminder of what once was. It's a sad reflection of an era when American engineering was starting its slow decline into mediocrity. Would I buy this car for its engine? Absolutely not. If you want a classic car that delivers, you're going to need to look somewhere else. All right, folks, time to dive into the mechanics of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne. I hope you're ready, because this is where things get a bit messy. First off, let's talk about the transmission. Now, I don't care what anyone says. The Hydra-matic 4-speed automatic is a decent piece of engineering for its time, but it's no turbo Hydra-matic 400. That's the gold standard, the best automatic transmission ever built, while this Hydra-matic feels like second best at best. It's clunky and can be downright frustrating if you're looking for smooth shifts. If you've ever driven one, you know it can feel like a drunk elephant trying to dance. And don't even get me started on the manual option. A 3-speed manual with overdrive? Really? It's almost like they threw a bone to the purists, but honestly, it's a half-hearted attempt at being sporty. For me, that's a huge pass. Now let's shift gears and talk about the rear axle. The rear axle ratios available, like 3.08 to 1 and 3.23 to 1, are typical for the era, but they're not doing this car any favors. What you end up with is a sluggish feel that's reminiscent of the malaise era, where performance took a back seat to comfort and fuel economy. And let's be real, if you're driving a classic car, who cares about fuel economy? The whole point is to enjoy the ride, not to sip gas like you're nursing a fine wine. And then there's the overall build quality of the drivetrain. You can expect a fair amount of rust-prone areas, especially around the trunk pan and wheel wells. Combine that with the electrical issues that plague the wiring harness, and you've got a recipe for disaster. Intermittent failures crop up, and if you think you can just ignore them, think again. It's like a game of whack-a-mole where the moles are your bank account draining away. So, where does that leave us? The mechanics of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne are a mixed bag, and not in a good way. For someone who values performance, this car is a letdown. A transmission that's not the best and a rear axle that's just trying to get by. It's all pretty dreadful. If you're seriously considering this car, you'd better be ready to roll up your sleeves because you're going to need to put some work into it. Would I buy this car? Not a chance. You'd have to twist my arm with a crowbar to get me behind the wheel of this mechanical mishmash. Oh boy, now we're diving into the suspension, brakes, and handling of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne, and let me tell you, this is where things go from bad to worse. First off, we have to address the suspension setup. This car was built during a time when engineering was starting to cut corners, and it shows. The Parisienne's suspension combines a front coil spring arrangement with a rear leaf spring setup. Sounds decent, right? But don't let that fool you. The reality is, this is a mushy, wallowy ride that feels like you're floating on a cloud made of marshmallows. You hit a bump, and it feels less like a car and more like a boat on choppy waters. The handling? It's a complete joke. If you want a driving experience that gives you the sensation of steering a giant overweight barge, then congratulations, you've found your match. Now, let's talk brakes. The Parisienne is equipped with drum brakes all around, and if you think that's going to inspire confidence, think again. The braking performance is nothing short of terrifying. With a car that weighs in at around 3,000 pounds and has a power-to-weight ratio that's more pathetic than a sloth on a lazy day, you'll need every ounce of stopping power you can get. But those drum brakes, they're about as effective as trying to stop a freight train with a feather. Expect long stopping distances and a distinct lack of feel through the pedal. It's like the car is saying, why stop when you can just keep rolling? And the steering? Don't even get me started. The steering feels disconnected and vague, like you're driving a car that's been fitted with a steering wheel from a completely different vehicle. You'll find yourself wrestling with it just to keep it on the road. It's mind-numbing, and the thought of taking a sharp corner sends chills down your spine. Cars from the mid-60s to early 70s handle much, much better, and it's almost criminal to compare this thing to the likes of those beauties. To sum it up, the suspension and braking on this beast are a sad reminder of the decline of American automotive engineering during the malaise era. Poorly executed designs and a lack of attention to detail create a driving experience that leaves much to be desired. If you were hoping for a classic car that delivers a thrill behind the wheel, you might want to keep looking. For me, I'd rather take a hard pass on this one and keep my classic driving experience alive with something that actually handles. Would you take a risk on this rolling disaster? When it comes to the reliability of the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne, it's a mixed bag at best. This car, while boasting some unique styling and a certain brutal charm, is riddled with flaws that can turn any ownership experience into a nightmare. For instance, common rust spots plague this model, with the trunk pan, wheel wells, and floor pans being notorious for their susceptibility to decay. If you're not careful, what starts as a classic car dream can quickly morph into a rust bucket horror story. Then there's the electrical side of things. Wiring harness degradation is a well-documented issue, leading to intermittent failures that can leave you stranded faster than you can say pathetic horsepower. And speaking of horsepower, let's not forget the engine. With an output of approximately 185 horsepower, gross mind you, this car struggles to deliver any semblance of performance. It's slow, lumbering, and doesn't inspire confidence when you hit the gas. The transmission options are an interesting mix, with the Hydra-Matic 4-speed automatic being decent. But if you're lucky enough to find a manual, prepare yourself for some linkage problems that can make shifting feel like a chore. Now, here's the kicker. Despite all its shortcomings, the 1958 Pontiac Parisienne has a certain nostalgic appeal. It represents an era when cars had character and presence, even if that presence is accompanied by a host of mechanical woes. The auction prices for these cars can be absurd, ranging from $30,000 to $70,000, often for models with extremely low mileage. While it's tempting to chase after that brutal charm, remember that it's only original once. If you can find a well-preserved example for a reasonable price, snag it. But if it's been repainted, rusted, or has a shoddy interior, just walk away. My verdict? Despite its flaws, if you appreciate the raw, unapologetic character of this classic, it may just be worth the gamble. But would you really spend your hard-earned money on this? If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a like. Leave your comments and impressions. Your opinion is very important to me. Until next time.